Welcome to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today with me, I have the wonderful pleasure of speaking with Mr. Glenn Murray. He is the founder of 220 Communications and the author of the book, You Wrote It, Now Go Sell It. Glenn, thank you for hanging out with me today. I thank you for your time. As I tell everybody, time is a precious gift that we can't get back. So anytime that you give me, I truly, truly value it. So welcome to the show. Thank you for hanging out with me.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited about being on the show. I was on your website reading some of your blogs. Very interesting.
Oh yeah, just me running my mouth. I'm good at that, I'm good at running my mouth. So tell me, where am I speaking to you from today?
I'm in Chicago. I live in suburban Chicago, so you're speaking to me from my home, from my couch. Very comfortable on a Friday.
Yeah, I have spent many wonderful days in Chicago. It's a wonderful, wonderful town. Lots of culture.
It is great in the summertime. It's wonderful. In the wintertime, not so much, but summer.
I don't do Chicago. I don't do Chicago like November to February. I don't do Chicago.
Yeah.
So we can talk about men in business today because the show is the male perspective. So I like to get things from a male angle. And so that leads me into talking about is it 220 or 220?
220.
220.
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to know about 220 Communications. What all do you do there? Because I was on the website and you just doing the most. You just everything. Tell us what you do, because I might need that.
I get that all the time. They're like, what don't you do? I was like, well, there's a lot I don't do, but I do quite a bit, yes. So I'll have to give you just a quick history of it, and that'll explain why I do a lot of what I do, because some of it just kind of led into some other things naturally. So it started out many years ago as just an events company, and just helping to do cultural events. From that, I created an art business. I had a small art business called Creations. It was an online art store, and it was through my parents. My parents sold art. They imported art from Africa. I still have a ton of great artwork from many different countries in Africa, and I started doing that. So I had Creations, which was a small business, hosting events, and I had a friend of mine that asked me about helping her to promote a book. So from that, I started doing book events, book and art events. So I figured the two would go together. The audiences were similar, the interest was similar. So I started doing that. From doing that, I got more and more authors asking me to help them promote their books. So I'm reading all these books and I'm looking at them and I'm like, okay, this is terrible. Some of it's really bad. Think about it from a marketing campaign. If somebody handed you a book that had a terrible cover, that had grammatical errors all through it, and told you to make magic happen with that, what would you do? You tell them they were crazy. So I was like, I need to at least own this process or figure it out. So I decided to create a publishing entity, not knowing a lot about publishing. I'll totally admit that. A lot of the stuff I've started, I didn't know anything about, to be quite honest. I just kind of jumped in it with both feet.
Sometimes it's best to be naive.
It is. Actually, it is, because you can ask all the dumb questions and really want to know what they mean versus somebody who thinks they've been in it for a while and the answer is just how it is. So I was able to do it and look at it a different way. So I started the publishing company about 9 years ago. Fast forward now, we've published about 50 books. We have two divisions. We have our traditional 220 publishing, which is traditional publishing, our own imprint, and then we do private label for self-published authors. A lot of authors like that autonomy and still want to be self-published, so we offer service to them as well. So we design, edit, distribute books, all of that. So we do the whole full service publishing. So that's been fun. Okay. In between doing that, the event side of me kept doing things. So I was doing an event called Authors and Artists, which was dealing with the art, and then I started doing wine tasting because I was actually, like every good idea, it starts with a woman. I was dating somebody who was into wine, and she was like, I know, I saw you cheering. She was like, hey, you should. We went to wine tastings. It was like kind of my first taste, literally, of wine, and enjoying wine in a different way. And I'm like, oh, this could be cool. I could do fundraisers and book events based off of that. So that's how I started doing that. Fast forward probably about 3 or 4 years, and I'm in Napa on a wine tour, and I see these tours all around Napa, and actually with another girlfriend who was more into wine. See, it continues with a woman. Not only does it start with a woman, the idea gets advanced
the right
to another level. So I can honestly say women have helped me take my business to another level. I can definitely say that. Hopefully she's not watching this. She'll be charging me for that one. But I saw the tours around Napa and I thought this is a great idea. Chicago's such a great wine city, wine bars, restaurants. It's just a big town for food and wine. I should try this. I've got all this. I've got a great audience already that came to my wine events that I was throwing. I do fundraisers and things like that. So that's where we created Wine Crawl. So that became kind of the second business under 220 Communications. If you don't count events, then there's publishing and then there's Wine Crawl. So Wine Crawl grew. We've been doing that for 6 years now. We actually hit a couple of our events went viral. So we had like over 1 million visitors to the Wine Crawl page, that event page. So we really saw it grow. We expanded to other cities, Atlanta, Dallas. We do a Napa tour every year. And now we're franchising. We actually have 3 different groups that are going to take over Wine Crawl in different cities for me because I just don't have time to do it because of all the other stuff I've done now. So, but that's fun. I'd say that was my fun business because I really got into it, enjoyed it, met a lot of wonderful people. There are not a lot of African Americans in the industry, but it's a close-knit group. And they're really good people, and they were been very helpful for me. So it's been really, just really a fun thing to do. But the writing kind of took back over. So that's where this book came from. This year, I wrote this book, which started out on a plane, just kind of as a guide for my authors. It was a PowerPoint. And I gave it over to a friend of mine who is in PR for one of her clients who was writing a book. She's like, you should really turn this into a book. It's great information. I'm like, I really hadn't thought about that. It was just something I did on an airplane, honestly. I didn't really put a lot of thought into it. I mean, I knew what to do, and it's kind of like muscle memory. If you've worked in marketing, social media marketing have been things that I've worked in probably for the last 20 years. I started out in direct marketing in corporate America. So I've been doing, before there was social media, there was direct marketing, and social media is kind of like direct marketing really gave birth to social media, that whole one-to-one relationship, but it took it a whole different direction because it's digital and because you're able to interact closely with them. So it's not sending them a piece of mail anymore or calling them on the phone. It's sending a tweet, a text, a post, or something like that. So it's really direct marketing on a whole other plane. So just knowing that and being in that industry, it just kind of became second knowledge to me because that's what I do every day. I'm always promoting my businesses, my authors, or whatever I'm doing. But writing the book made me look at it a whole different way, and it's actually opened up a lot of other doors for me, which is one of the reasons I had to franchise Wine Crawl, because now I've started to work on converting some of our books to screenplays. So I co-wrote, I didn't write it by myself, I wrote my first screenplay along with a lady named Marcy Batiste out of Dallas. She's the author of Love Miscarriage. So we just completed that screenplay, and Keisha Rose, who is an actress, writer, producer, just kind of do everything, which I've formed another joint venture with and to go into production. So that's been job number 4 now. So I think that's all I got up to this point. I'm trying to think. If you interview me tomorrow, I may have another business going on too, but that's about it right now.
That's a lot. That's a lot. Now, if I understand the quote correctly, so you said you have 4. Now, they said billionaires have 7 streams of income.
Streams of income, yes. So there's consulting that I do on the side. So there's publishing. There's 220, which still we do some other things like with events and music that we produced a CD for a local artist here in Chicago.
Okay.
There is G Rose Productions, which is a joint venture with Keisha Rose. I'm the G, she's the Rose. We are producing our first series for my very first author, a lady named Yanni Brown. She wrote a book called Making Love Better Begins Within, and her follow-up is called Making Love Better Together, which is also going to be the title of her show. So it's kind of like a Iyanla Vanzant meets Rachel Ray, or something like that. So it's cooking, it's keeping couples together. She's a very interesting lady, so we're really excited about that. We start taping in a few weeks. So if we were counting revenue streams, I might be close to 7.
Awesome.
I'm on my way. If not, I need one more that I'll probably have thought of by next week. So I have to come back on your show. I'll let you know, like number 7. I'll just send you an email, like number 7.
We got to pick it up again.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you just gave me a lot of information. So let me see here. I want to go back because,
Okay.
Wait a minute, we got questions. We come back. And another thing.
I know.
The self-publishing thing.
Yes.
The beauty of technology in today's world, a lot more people are getting the book that is inside of them out, right?
Absolutely.
But like you mentioned, a lot of people are bringing stuff to people that is really crap. It's not well put together. So if you had to sit down and chat with somebody who wants to self-publish, what
Hmm.
kind of direction, what kind of guidance would you give them?
I would, one of the things we actually talk to with our authors is we kind of give them the speech. I call it the speech. There are about 1,000 books published a day all across the world, everywhere. So about 365,000 books are published in a year. The average book sells about 200 copies. So my first question to an author or to a prospective author is, what makes you different? What makes you above average? What makes you think beyond your cousins, your mom, your dad, your immediate family, maybe, and that's a maybe sometimes with your immediate family, that they're all going to buy this book? Who else is going to buy this book? Why? What's your why for writing? And a lot of people are, and I respect that people want to tell their story. I totally respect that. Not everybody wants to read your story though. So what makes your story different from them? And some people will publish anyway. Some people will publish, and that's what our private label business is for. If you just feel like you have this book in you and you're ready to get it out, that's fine. But when we have a conversation about us putting our name on it and putting investment behind it, then that's a different conversation that we need to have. We need to talk about what's your strategy, how do you see this book selling, where are the channels that we should sell it in, and if we don't see a market for it, we may recommend somebody go to private label. But it's just a very honest answer. And I tell people, look at it this way. You are like a stock that I'm having to purchase. I'm investing money into this stock, and I'm hoping that I get a return on that investment. So, if I get a return on it, then we're both going to be successful. So how do we both make each other successful? How do we make each other successful? What's the win-win in that, in investing in you?
Okay, awesome. So a lot of times self-published authors or people looking into self-publishing, the conversation that I have with them, they don't understand marketing. They just think, okay, I'll just make the book and like
Yeah, and
everybody.
miraculously, Oprah will call me tomorrow, and I'll go do a master class. Yep, I get that all the time. I had somebody tell me that. I thought, well, I just write, and I thought you just find all these signings for me to fly to. I was like, okay, number one, nobody knows you. So nobody's sitting up waiting by the phone or waiting by the internet to wait for me to make that press release saying your book is out so they can pick it up and call me and schedule your plane flight, your hotel, a book signing, buy books, have them waiting on you there for you to sign, and then you just hop off to the next city. I'm like, it just doesn't work that way. It sounds really cool and romantic, but it doesn't work that way. And yeah, there's a lot of people that mistake that. They mistake um, marketing and promotion for having a publicist. And I'm very big, and I talk a little bit about that in the book, on understanding the difference. Because marketing and promotion is what your publishing company does. They don't necessarily have to be your publicist. So I'm not going to call the Lana Reid show and go, hey, I've got this author that you need to check out. And you need to like send your bio in and everything and see if she'll put you on the show. And I kind of wrote the book to kind of prove that to some of my authors as well, to say, okay, I'm going to write the book too. I'm going to be in this with you guys in the trenches, and this is how we're going to work. And I sent you an email. I did it on my own. I didn't get anybody else to do it. I sent you an email saying, hey, here's my bio. I think I'd be a good guest on the show. And that's what it takes. Not everybody has the patience to do that. We send out opportunities all day long to the authors, and I've had authors come back to me and say, oh, well, I tried a couple of them and they told me no. And I gave up. Yeah, like, oh, I gave up. I'm like, yeah, they're not there to tell you yes. That's not it. You need to compel them to tell you yes. You need to build a compelling story about yourself so that they have a reason to have you on the show. That's what the media does. You got to understand that. So understanding the difference between that is huge. A lot of authors feel like that's going to happen miraculously, and it just doesn't. There is work to be done. There's a grind to doing this. If nobody knows who you are, if you're an unknown author trying to get out there. And I'm not saying it can't happen. There are plenty of great stories of people who are selling books because, they put in the work to do it, but they put in the work to do it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception that self-published authors have, is that it just happens magically with unicorns and leprechauns and all of that stuff, and it's just
yeah. And I mean, J.K. Rowling's the patron saint of authors who've been turned down and become wild successes. But I'm like, yeah, but what if she'd stopped at the first publishing company that turned her down? You never would have heard of her. So You can't, you got to understand that there are going to be roadblocks. You got to understand there's going to be hurdles, and you got to be able to overcome them all.
Persevere. Now, I was reading your book, and I don't want to give up too much of it because we need people to go buy it. But you mentioned in there a real interesting concept that I took that journey when I dropped my first book, but now in hindsight, I realize it. But you say something in your book about bookstores are not really your friend.
Yeah.
Can you go into that, or?
Yeah, and this comes from a few years of dealing with bookstores, and you have to understand a bookstore is there to sell books. So that means if I'm a bookstore owner, I'm going to sell the books that I know people are going to buy. So I'm going to put the most popular books in there. So an author, a lot of authors, their goal is to get in a bookstore and get on the shelves of a bookstore. And that really means nothing if you don't have a mechanism to get people to go in and buy that book. So bookstores aren't put there to say, oh, Mr. Unknown Author that nobody knows. Sure, I'll take 100 of your books and put them on the shelves, and we'll just hope for the best. And we'll pay you as soon as those books sell. That's not what they do. Bookstores every year, as a publisher, you know this because I get back returns every year from bookstores when they don't sell the books. Because what do bookstores do? They know that they can send in returns and get their money back. So it's a guarantee for the bookstore. Their leverage, they have all the leverage when it comes to that. So that's why I said they're not your friend. They're not there waiting to sell your book for you. Nobody at the bookstore is going to be selling your book for you. If you get a book on the shelf, you need to promote yourself and tell people to go in and buy that book or get people there. If they do a signing, same thing. You know, they may promote the signing, but if you don't sell, whatever you don't sell, they're sending back to your publisher. And then it comes out of your royalties as well. So that's why I talk about it, you know, not being your friend. Because a lot of people, that's the end result. They see the bookstore. It's kind of like being a recording artist and you want to get on the radio. But you know, and I know, what do they play, about 10 songs on the radio in rotation for the whole day for 24 hours? There's about 10 songs played. You know, there's thousands of songs out there, but there's 10 that make it. And that's kind of with the bookstores. You walk into a bookstore, you're going to see T.D. Jakes, you're going to see Hillary Clinton, you're going to see anybody running for president. Any of their books are going to be right there in the front. You know, you're not getting that Michelle Obama. You're not going to get that kind of space and that kind of real estate in a bookstore. You're going to be on the shelf in the back somewhere, you know, and it's going to be one or two copies. There's no billboard. There's no posters. There's no arrows directing them to your book. It's just going to be there on the shelf until somebody comes and pulls it off the shelf. So that's why it's a harsh title, but it's kind of true that you kind of have to be honest with people about that this isn't, they're not put there to help you sell your book. They're put there to sell books. If yours happens to be one of them, then they're just as happy. They're going to collect that money. But if they don't, then they're going to send it back.
Awesome tips. Awesome tips. Like I said, you know, I went into it years and years blind, and, you know, you learn from other people's mistakes. So I think that is a very good lesson that potential authors need to understand, that there's other ways to make the money, but the bookstores is probably not the best
It's
option.
probably not one. Yeah, that's probably the last option when you think about it. If you're an independent author, whether you have a publishing company or not, I don't recommend now to my authors, to my newer authors, you know, that we try to go out and get on the shelves of stores. That's never a priority for me. It's more of how are you talking to your warm market? How are you going out reaching a new audience? What are you doing with this thing called the internet that happens to be free and happens to be open 24 hours a day? That means you can talk to new people every minute of every hour if you wanted to. How do you go? Yeah, so really we talk about that, and you know, it's a new media world and it's a soundbite world where people need to understand in 30 seconds you need to capture their attention. So really just talking about that more and doing more of that, and we do a lot of that on our Facebook page and on our website to really get people to know our authors.
Awesome. Now I want to segue back to what we were talking about in the beginning, men in business.
Yes.
And as you gave your full bio, you're doing like a lot of stuff, just amazing stuff. But I noticed in your story that you mentioned like you had females in your life at particular times that kind of directed you. So I'm wondering, as a man in business who's trying to do the entrepreneurship thing, as a woman in your life, what is the best thing that we can do for you to support you in your dreams and your vision and your goal? How do you help a man as he's building his business?
That's a really good question. And it's a different answer depending on what stage you are in building your business. You know, I think about my dating life. I try to think about it. Sometimes I think about it, sometimes I try not to. But I think about my dating life when I started this, when I just didn't know what I didn't know. And it was like long hours. I work a job, I come home and I work on the business, and trying to maintain a relationship during that was very, very hard. It number one, it just takes a special kind of woman to deal with men anyway sometimes, because we can be a handful. I'll admit that. But if we're driven and determined and focused, we can be even an even bigger handful. And you have to understand that. And it's not necessarily where you fit in that person's life, but it's almost like, okay, what can I do to enhance what they're trying to do? How do I support what they're trying to do? We notice that more. We remember that. And, I think that's really one of the key things. I think you don't need to necessarily see your place in the picture. It's like, okay, here's the picture. Here's what I can do to enhance it. Here's some more color I can add to the picture. If you're painting, if I were comparing it to painting a picture, that's what I would say. It's more of an enhancement.
Okay.
Because eventually, I know it doesn't always seem like it, but we remember the people that were there with us as we were growing. And we really, we take that to heart, because not everybody can see that vision. Not everybody has that patience. Not everybody's there when, in my case, when an event doesn't go well, or a book doesn't sell well, or something, or even a relationship with an author doesn't go well and we have to sever it. Those are tough things that you have to do. Those are tough things in business. You're in business, not everything is a fairy tale. It doesn't always run smoothly. As much as you want it to, it doesn't. So how does that person react to that when you're not necessarily at your best?
Mm-hmm. Give a man some space to come back and lick his wounds and
yeah,
plan.
It's a dynamic that you just really have to understand. It's an added dynamic. It's already hard enough to date. Just dating, if I just had a regular 9 to 5, dating and dealing with that. But then you add this in, where this kind of becomes part of his life, but that becomes part of the, I don't want to say obsession, but it definitely becomes a desire to be successful at it. And men are we're very linear in our thinking when it comes to success. There was a great sermon. It was called "Men Are Like Waffles and Women Are Like Spaghetti." So if you think about a waffle, it's a bunch of boxes lined up. And men are very good at lining up their boxes. We're linear. Like I think, okay, I got this, so I can do this. I can achieve success with this next. And that's kind of how I've done it. I look back on it when I heard that sermon. I was like, oh man, that is me. It's boxes. It's like I went from one box to the next, from the event box to the publishing box to the wine crawl box to now writing more box to production box. But it's all a progression for us, where women are very much all over the place and can do many things, from manage a household, manage the children, manage the man, manage a job, all together, do it all in a day, come back and start over the next day.
Yeah, we can wear
men kind of need that line. We need that box. We need the box to get our boxes in a row, and we can be successful with it. We've lined up our boxes and achieved success with it. So it's not saying that it's not a level of success, but it's a different way of looking at life and how we look at life. It's a compartmentalized view of life.
And I mean, I think we complement each other. We need that, because we're all out here doing this or that, and you need somebody to say, hey, wait a minute, let's put some structure to this.
Yeah.
Structure person needs some, hey, let's think of the flowers, and let's both of them complement each other. So I mean, I think it works out when both parties understand their strengths.
Absolutely. They do.
I want to ask, because you've been in the game for a minute here. I think you were saying one business you've been 6 years, one business 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's a problem with people starting businesses, men and women. Most businesses we know don't stay, they don't last. What tips do you give to a man trying to start a business for longevity? How do you set yourself up to be in the marathon and not the short race?
I think understanding where you start is not how you're going to finish. Having a vision beyond today is very important, because if I only looked at 9 years ago when I started, I had 3 or 4 authors and we were doing okay, I never would have gotten to this stuff, because there's a lot of bumpy roads along the way. There were years where we weren't selling books, where we weren't making money. There were years, Thinking about doing a TV show was way, way, way off and not even a thought for a while. So looking at it, where do you want to go with it? Start with the answer. I learned that from my working at GE. That was a big Jack Welch term, but start with the answer and then work your way to where you want to go with it. With Wine Crawl, I knew I wanted to be in other cities. 6 years ago when I started my little one, my one-time thing in Chicago, and the first one sold out. So then the second one sold out. And then I started thinking, okay, how do I scale this? How do I grow it into other cities? Not knowing how I was going to do it in year one, but here I am now in year 6, and, we're looking at 4 or 5 different markets. We've already launched in 3, things like that. And I'm getting calls from people who want to do it in many different cities. So I've got a couple of conversations later today about Birmingham, about Cleveland, about the Carolinas. So never really knowing how I was going to get there at first, but I knew that there was growth to the concept. And that's the thing. And don't be afraid to start over. Having a marketing background, you learn that it's all trial and error. So, you do a marketing effort and you get 1% response, you're going to try again. You're going to keep testing and marketing is testing and retesting. So I applied those principles to every business I have. So I'm not afraid to reinvent that business, to go a different direction, to say, hey, I screwed up. I made a mistake and this wasn't what we should have done. So now we're going to back up and we're going to do it again. We're going to try something different. So definitely not afraid to do that. I think that's the advice that I would give people wanting to start a business, and also find something that's a passion of yours, because then it makes it a lot easier when you hit those bumps in the road, because you're going to hit them. You're going to hit financing bumps. You're going to hit just failure bumps, just bad ideas, stuff like that. That's going to happen. That's part of being human. That's part of growing in a business. That's part of learning.
Yeah, you always have to be willing to go back into the locker room at halftime, kind of readjust the plays, get back out there, and like, we're going to do it this way. But I think, sometimes with new business owners, you get stuck in we've been doing it this way. This is the direction we had. This is what on the business plan, and this is what we're going to do. But
right,
you always got to be ready to tweak. You got to always be ready to adjust. And
right, I used the example of Blockbuster and Netflix. Blockbuster thought, yeah, why do we need to mail DVDs out to people? People are always going to come in our stores. Why would they want to go on the internet and have you mailed to their house? That's a dumb idea, Netflix. Get out of here. And now I think there's one Blockbuster left in the country, in the world, and Netflix is $1 billion company.
That's right.
Because it's not being able to see past your own 4 walls really impacts you. You have to have a dream that's bigger than the window you're looking out of.
Constant, and like you said, you have to constantly be ready and open to reinvent yourself. I think that's always a tip to success. It's always viable. Now, I want to ask one more question, and then we have my random question of the day. But you mentioned wine crawl. So when you mix wine crawl, I don't drink, but hey, I might show up for some cheese. You got cheese?
Okay, good food, great restaurants.
Okay.
We'll feed you. If you don't drink, we'll feed you well.
Oh, I can eat. I will be there.
You can eat. All right, well then we got something for you.
When is the next one?
When is the next one? Okay, so I'm doing one, had to think about this, September 28th in Chicago. We're doing a boat party, actually. It's our end of summer. It's our annual end of summer boat cruise on Lake Michigan. So that's usually a lot of fun. And that's more food than drink. So that would be a perfect one for you. And then October 19th, I believe I had the date right, Wine Crawl Dallas launches. So the first of my franchisees, Deborah and Pamela Cruda, are actually running that one, and we're going to launch there. I'm actually going to that one though, because I just want to sit and be a guest. I like the idea of not having to work one. I just want to go somewhere I don't have to work it, where I can actually just go and drink and eat and have fun. So that's October 19th. So that's what we're planning right now. That's on the calendar. Savannah is going to be February 2020, and we're also looking at going to Italy to do a Rome wine crawl, like a 7-day tour of Rome. Lots of food there. You'd love that one. That's probably either 2020, 2021 thing.
Awesome. Now, you keep on mentioning you're franchising this. So is there a way that people can contact you if they're interested, or are you looking for particular people for franchise?
No, we're looking for anybody interested. I mean, I'd love somebody with event experience, somebody that enjoys wine and enjoys people, because it's a fun thing to do, but there is work involved in it. So having done events and knowing events is helpful. but we will help train the right people as well. But yeah, you can actually reach out to us at info at winecrawl.com, and it's wine-crawl.com.
Okay.
And if all that fails and you forget all of that, you can just email me or find me on Twitter at Glenn220. That's easy enough. Glenn220. That's my Instagram and my Twitter handle. So I made it easy for people to find me. Glenn with 2 N's.
So I have my random question of the day. Everybody gets a random question.
Uh-oh, this is scary. You got that in a little Tupperware box.
Every one of you guys does the same thing. You go, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Yeah, because you put it in a Tupperware box. That means you could have been anywhere thinking of those, and you could be cooking, cut your finger, and remember some man made you cut your finger because you were thinking bad about him, and then you write a question down and put it in the box. So, I mean,
It's painless, I promise you.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trusting you.
Okay,
There's a wine crawl ticket on the line. I'm just, not that I'm trying to bribe you, but.
Too late. Here's the question. If your partner were to surprise you, what would be the ideal date for them to take you on?
Oh, God, that is hard. The ideal date?
Mr. Wine Crawl, man, that's hard.
I know. Yeah, but I'm used to creating the experience, not actually experiencing it myself or have somebody else create it for me. But I know, I do have an answer. Anything involving music. So going to see live music. It could be like at a dinner theater, like City Winery is big here in Chicago, New York, Atlanta. That's a great place for like dinner and a great, listening to a great artist. Like next week, I'm going to see Layla Hathaway at City Winery. So you can have dinner, and I love Layla Hathaway to death, really. Okay. So that would be something. So anything involving like live music, great food, you got me.
All right. So now when you get a surprise date, you can thank me for that because now it's been put out there that that's what you do for him. So I want some credit for this.
You want credit? I will tweet it out. Thank you, Lana Reid, for this. You made this happen. You did this.
There you go.
I will do that.
Get out of here, Glenn. Please let everybody know how they pick up the book, how they get in touch with you, how potential prospect authors get in touch with you, get their manuscripts. Let us know the whole deal.
The whole deal. Okay, so you can find me directly at Glenn220, Glenn 220 on Twitter and on Instagram. 220 Publishing is www.220books.com. And Wine Crawl is winecrawl.com, wine-crawl.com. But if all else fails, hit me up on Twitter, hit me up on Instagram, and I'll give you all of that information. You can find me. I'm on Facebook too under Glenn Murray. I've got a couple of pages there as well. The book is available on Amazon. It's You Wrote It, Now Go Sell It. I actually have a copy right here and behind me. That's staged. You notice the staging. I didn't do that either. Somebody else did that. A woman starts with a woman. They're like, oh no, you need this behind you. You got to do, because you probably would have saw like dirty dishes if it had been me thinking about this. So thank her for that one. It's available on Amazon. It's only $5.99. It's a short book, quick read, easy read. But if you've written a book, and people have told me they have products that they put out, and they were like, this is great for just marketing products in general, not even books. This is just good advice. So definitely love to talk to people, feedback on it, or just any questions about publishing. Make myself available anytime. So, thank you for that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Glenn, I thank you for hanging out with me, and I will make sure I catch up with one of you guys at the Wine Crawl. As long as you promise me there will be some food.
Plenty of food. We will make sure.
There you go. So thank you once again for hanging out with me. I wish you the best, much success to you and everybody that touches you.
Thank you. Same to you, and good luck with your show. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me on.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you.
All right.